So one of the fastest growing markets in the world is AI. But there's another market that we've been following closely over the last few years, which is called space tech, the infrastructure plays in space. And one of them that I'd like to share with you today is over on Lunar Stock, LUNR. We got into it this morning at Market Open in our live session in Stockmates. And if you ever want to tune on into our daily live trading sessions, they happen every morning at Market Open. It's the second link in the description below. We got in on this dip here on Lunar as the market of space tech pulled down at Market Open here to just around an entry point of $10.03. We set a stop loss pretty close here at about $9.93. And so far, we've been able to make here about 2%, 1 to 2%, up to about $10.17. So right now we're looking for a 5 to 10% move or a continuation of this trend. And right now we've made, again, just around about 1.5%. So as we watch this 5 to 10% move and sharing kind of what led to our entry, I'm going to break down the reasons why we're following this stock. So we know that AI is growing, and not just is AI on Earth, we see AI building out infrastructure in space as well, or companies building out AI infrastructure in space. But this is a company that is building the actual infrastructure in space. So we're talking about lunar payload service. We're talking about transportation from transmission services to infrastructure in orbit. And they've seen some interesting growth over the last few years. Over the last few years, the space market notoriously didn't have a lot of money to fuel their growth. But right now we're seeing that the market of space tech is growing and the real world usage is real. I mean, if I go outside on any given night when the stars are clear here in Northern California, I mean, we have a pretty good view of the stars. And I look up at the sky, I can see all of the satellites or different space infrastructure up there if you have a clear view. So you're seeing more space infrastructure. And then we see the actual market usage is very clear. You got the revenue and the financials coming in here, which also are looking interesting. So you got revenue increasing year over year from 2020. It was at $44 million per year. And just in 2024, they came in at $228 million in revenue. However, their net income did drop to about $343. So you see their revenues increase in 2025, though. Their net income has been fairly slim, and their revenue is on track to do over $300 million in 2025. So that means that they're most likely going to see growth of about 20%, more than 20% year over year, which is what they're seeing in the revenue side of things right now. Now, when we look at their assets have also cleaned up. 2024, they had more liabilities, or maybe just a little bit less in liabilities than they did in assets, which was not so good. Then we saw them in 2025 clean it up, drop their liabilities down here to 172, and push the assets over $500 million, and they've cleaned them up in 2025, as their assets are up 239%, and their liabilities are up just 22%. So that's kind of the financial side of things. If we look at the actual infrastructure they're building, they recently went public not too long ago. You can see some of this infrastructure they're building for the moon. They have a Nova C lunar lander that supports the current market demand for precursor missions and is preparing for cargo and resupply for sustained human lunar operations. So part of the initiative in NASA, and you also see Elon talk about this, is, hey, let's get back to the moon. Let's get back up there. And they have some landers, some technology that they've been building. Kind of see they fully equipped this thing. And they're building it for specifically lunar missions. Okay, so they have this, for example, proposal for NASA lunar terrain vehicle delivery and operations contract. You can see them, building out some technology, launching over to the moon. When we look at their infrastructure, they have mobility, they have prospecting, so infrastructure services to support lunar prospecting. And they're primarily working on mapping out the moon, on having infrastructure going to the moon. And it's not just this dead planet of, we're never going to do anything on the moon. There's a lot of reasons to explore it. A couple reasons would be having somewhat of a stationary spot, very predictable spot to be and have some technology there that could allow us to, easily communicate and radio with outside space infrastructure that we continue to build in this world. And so when it comes to data transmission, you can see there's a space network services contracts that they're winning there. These contracts support NASA's Artemis campaign and commercial missions. And just recently, you kind of see what they have here, some orbiting here around the moon. And then you have ground networks here that they have there with CSIRO. And essentially what we've seen come out from the different missions that they're launching and the press releases they've recently come out with, getting more into the news here. Aside from their product developments, they got 4 NASA lunar missions. They're founded in just 2013. And right now they got over 400 employees. They've locked in some recent contracts around $5 to $10 million. There's a $9.8 million contract there. That's for orbital vehicle transfers. There's been some other contracts selecting SpaceX to launch their 4th lunar lander mission. So they're also working with SpaceX in that regard. And I don't know if they're working with Rocket Lab, but we'll definitely be diving in deeper to see if that partnership continues to materialize. They are delivering lunar missions pretty consistently year over year and signing some new contracts and then recently raising some money. And it's going to show up on their new balance sheet. They just raised about $300 million. Okay, so in this $300 million aggregate principal amount of 2.5% senior convertible notes, this most likely we're going to see their balance sheet with this move improve. Their balance sheet here could potentially get even more favorable with maybe over $1 billion to $2 billion in assets. That current deal of about $300 million, if they hold true, could put them around $800 million in assets. Now, with their market cap at $1.8 billion and bringing in about $300 million a year, on track to at least, then we would see them have a lot of potential here for the near term and into the next few years in the space tech world. So really, if you look at them over the last month, we've seen them up 17%. They've been actually beat down a little bit year to date, about 43% from highs of $23 a share. And that kind of brings us into the recent moves here. We're up about $240 on this trade we entered this morning in Stockmate. We set a pretty tight stop loss. So we had this plan in place. We were going for, again, about 5% to 10% on this trade. So $500 to $1,000 on about 977 shares. And we're looking for a stop loss here at around 993. We went even more aggressive with our stop loss and ended up setting a stop this morning. I don't know if I can even really zoom in and see the stop loss. Let's see here at 993. So we set a stop loss 993, and then we've already made more than 1-to-1, and we're up about $250 profit today, looking for continuations up into this trend. So we set a tight stop because they've been holding this support, trying to hold this support around 980. And then we started to see this trend kind of finding higher highs. If they weren't going to find support, we'd probably see them sell off. So we set a pretty tight stop up there after this dip buy this morning. And we're looking for this continuation of trend that we've seen with Lunar Stock over the last few weeks, making higher highs and looking for them to potentially make, again, this run, kind of at least jumping up into here about 1050 to potentially continuing that trend of about 10% margin for profit up into about $11 a share. Taking a bigger step back, you can see it's also in this greater trend that we're watching. So while this shorter term swing is what we're playing today, we're also looking at this potential recovery of about 30 to 50% up into about $14 or $15 a share maybe not this full swing up into about 25 bucks a share. We'd be looking at overvaluations, and we'd like to see things really play out better. If they were to make it up to $25 a share, we're looking for something really big to change on the near term. But if they are continuing with their current infrastructure build in space, yes, there's AI, yes, there's data centers, yes, there's quantum, yes, there's a lot of different markets that people are investing in. But if we're looking at this opportunity here, we're looking at a near-term potential of about $15. So that's going to be the main focus for this week. We'll be in this trade throughout the day. Again, if you'd ever like to see the daily live trading, it's the second link in the description. And you get a free t-shirt when you join Stockmate down below. Hopefully I earned your thumbs up. Hit the like button. If I did, do consider subscribing. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.